Well, dear friends, I do welcome everyone to today's webinar. As you know, our webinars are delivered every week. And as far as I understand and know, this webinar is translated into 5 languages. Therefore, I believe there are people connected from different parts of the world: Russian, Italian, Spanish, German, and English. I do welcome all of you, dear friends. So, Nikolai, my question to you and other rooms, whether we are ready and the interpreters are ready. Please give me 10 to show that the translation is running. Perfect. Well, dear friends, I welcome you once again to today's webinar. I will work with you today. My name is Mila Serdyukova. If you don't know me, I am the chair of the Presidential Council of the program and the certified speaker and the private investor, certified master profit coach and genius of finance host. And I support the company by training the people globally. I mostly speak and work with the English speaking audience, but also Russian is my native language. Therefore, I will speak it as well. For newbies, what I want to tell, so the chairperson of the Presidential Council and the consumer community, New Economic Evolution of the World. So maybe you don't know what it is about. I will share some details. But first of all, I would like to find out how many newbies do we have. So Nikolai, please put it, write down in the chat, find either a survey or write down in the chat the time you come to our webinar, either the first time comer, the second, the third time comer, or you are a regular visitor of our webinars. Well, you see, we have newbies, and I'm sure that there are those people who joined us the first time at the webinar. I will tell you a bit about myself. I come from Estonia. So actually, my parents are from Russia, but at some time they decided, it was the time of the Soviet Union, they decided to move to Estonia. My mom was an accountant. My dad is a former military guy, and therefore I come from an ordinary family. And when I grew up in Narna in Estonia, an amazing city. And if you haven't seen it, so there are a lot of rivers, castles. Actually, I believe this is the best city. But then I realized that one day that I want to achieve something more. And Narva is a small town of 50,000 people only, and it was not enough for me. First of all, I wanted to move to the capital, Tallinn, but then I realized that Estonia is not the country I would like to realize myself. I wanted to travel around the globe and be a part of a global mission or company. And when I was 20, actually 19 years of age, with my friend, we decided to leave everything behind, our studies, everything in Estonia, and it took us 3 days to move to UK, to England. But staying in England without the knowledge of English, my first years were very complicated and difficult, and I worked in different places, starting from hotels, McDonald's, different cafes. And gradually I learned and improved my English. And when I entered the business school faculty, so actually I was a fluent speaker of English, and my life was quite simpler. And I studied, I worked, I paid back the loans I took in Estonia, and my life was progressing, was developing. I was employed by a large company in London, which was dealing with sales and the organization of conferences. And I had one business trip to Singapore at quite a good position. At that time, my income was quite good, and I stayed in Singapore for some time. I opened an office, I did sales, I recruited people to our business, I trained them. But you know, there was some vacuum in my soul. Yes, I realized that I know how to make money, how to earn money at my job. I learned how to overcome some hardships, but you know, I missed something. So I didn't want to earn for money, to work for money. I wanted to do something important, significant, and valuable for others, to have a mission in my life. This is what many people are concerned with, no matter which country you come from. The question why you are here, why you are to this world, and what is my devotion. So actually, I had this in my head. So please put a plus if you are also concerned with this question. You are thinking of your mission, of your purpose in this life, those achievements you would like to have, the same things I suffered from. And actually, I became lucky. I was quite lucky that in my life, I met some progressive people who were investors. And one of my friends at that time, he was a stranger to me, Armand Murnieks. He told me about the business opportunities. And a few months after taking the trainings, one of the trainings I will describe this training to you as well. I took quite a scary decision. I gave up my job, my stable source of income, and to leave for nowhere to the industry where again I had to start everything from scratch. Well, for my friends, for my parents, it was a shock. How dare I leave my job? I came back from Singapore, and my next business trip was to Australia, where I should open a new office. So it was a peak of my career. What else do you need? This is a question I'm regularly asked. But actually, my life went in the way that my second decision to give up my career, an appropriate earning, actually at that time I was very afraid and scared. It was a very large step forward. I was not supported by my surrounding, but nonetheless the decision was made for myself. I made this decision and I decided, no matter what happens, there will be 3 and 6 months, and I will devote all my efforts and endeavors and learn the most from this company. And if 6 months after I am a failure, I will come back to the labor market and come back to my job. And now, looking back, actually, the decision made at that time was the best decision taken not only for myself, but for my friends, for my relatives. And today I'm very excited with this, with what I'm doing. I'm helping a lot of people globally. Over the last years, I've traveled almost every month, new countries, new conferences, new people to meet, and a lot of partners who changed their lives simply because of being said and told about this opportunity. Therefore, today I am deeply involved in investing. I have my investment portfolio. I make investments in different instruments, and my organization includes several hundreds of thousands people around the globe. And my earning has 6 zeros, and therefore I can tell you that those decisions I made on that date, at that time, they were viewed as unknown decisions. But now I'm sure that when a decision is made with your self-dedication, with full consciousness, and you are ready to act, then these decisions will be the luckiest in your life. Therefore, it's my pleasure today to talk to you, and I believe you will find this webinar very useful because we prepared a lot of interesting material for you. Well, the agenda for our today's webinar is that, first of all, we are going to discuss what is a harmonized model of a personality development. We will talk about investing. I will share with you a secret how to transform $1 to 1 million. Then we will talk very briefly about 8 rules of a private investor and start another part of our webinar, New Economic Evolution of the World. What is the global portfolio CryptoUnit? And a few pieces of information about the genius of finance and prospects of your business development. So please put a plus if you're ready, if you're decisive, and most importantly, if you have the tools. So this is our tool number one, your notebook. The second tool is a pen, a ball pen, and the third pen is a calculator. And indeed, a glass of water, because we need to drink water. It purifies our body. It fills up with the energy. I believe all the instruments are available on your tables. Great, let's start. So, what is the harmonized model of a personality development? Imagine you have a palm, and imagine that each finger indicates the important sphere of your development. For instance, this small finger indicates your health. Health is really important. Without health, it's quite difficult to talk about the successful business or some prospects in your development unless you are not healthy. Therefore, a small finger, the first finger, is your health. This is the sphere which many people start to notice only when the health is lost or you suffer from some health problems, although the health should be the sphere of your life where every day on a daily basis you do some exercising, you are active, which help you to strengthen your health, because without health it's difficult to work, to be happy, to be joyful, and therefore the first finger, your small finger, is your health. The second finger is relationships. What relationships mean? Relations to yourself, your attitude to yourself, whether you love yourself, whether you value yourself, and you have faith in yourself. But relationships embraces even more. It could be your views and attitudes to the society, to the community, to different situations, to the country, and to the world. And there are a lot of trainings where attention is paid to relations. And it's proven that if a person shapes the right way of thinking, for instance, when we are talking about the personality development, when a person understands that everything is in his power, that if he believes that he is able to realize all his goals and dreams, if he treats himself with love, respect, and support, then all the other life spheres will improve. And there, by the way, was an experiment in one of the universities participated by a lot of people. These people were divided into several groups. The first group are negative thinkers. They had negative opinions about themselves, about their country, about their town. So they were dissatisfied with everything. Their glass was half empty. And the other group was those optimists, outgoing people who actually were grateful to themselves, and their glass was half full. The experiment was the following. They gave the same models of situation development to these people. And it has been proven that the group with much lower or positive attitudes, they managed in a more efficient way to cope with the tasks, although the tasks and assignments were the same for both the groups. And what does it mean? It means that what we have inside in our brains and what we project, the reality, actually we convey this. If we create the negative reality, we dislike everything, and we are not satisfied, then we will live in the same environment, negative environment. Therefore, your attitudes to yourselves, to the surrounding, to your space should be positive. And you will see, as soon as you change this aspect, you will see that people emerge you've never met before, or there will be some other situations for a personal growth you haven't noticed even. And therefore, another sector or segment of your life is relations and attitudes. The third finger is emotions. You know, there is one reason, this middle finger, why it was selected in US action movies. It is frequently shown. Yes, and this finger indicates emotions, our emotions we have. And emotions, you should never underestimate them, because they can be both destroying and creating. And each our thought or idea, our emotion, which we give birth to, is materialized much faster. And you can actually see and realize this. Before that, it took years or decades for a company to travel a journey from an idea to its realization. But now it takes only a few months. And even me notice that an idea I have in my head, it could be materialized in a few days only. So this is the pace of materialization of our thoughts, and they are materialized through our emotions. If we are emotionally unstable, if we are very negative, then we will actually attract even more pessimism. The next finger is your financial development. Why financial development matters? Financial development is demanded by each of us, financial and investment development. Since you may not be happy and grateful and live somewhere in a tent outdoors. There was a saying, with your beloved you can live in a tent, but actually living in this material world, we clearly realize that we are attached to some material values, material goods. And for a person to be happy, he needs to develop, to understand the magic of money, the secrets of money, no matter how we call it. It's important to realize how to make yourself richer, happier, and more successful. Wealth could be both material, physical, and non-material, non-physical. But here I say that if you are material rich, then you have more to give to others. If you have a look at the charitable foundations in the globe, so one of the foundations was created simply because of the efforts of the wealthy, well-off people, and they use their money to support others. And therefore, those who believe that money is devil and it's something bad, these are those principles you need to get rid of. Financial and investment development is as important as health, relations, and emotions. And the last finger is your mission and purpose. Why we are talking about your mission and purpose? It's simple. When you are on your road, on your way to somewhere, and you get pleasure from what you are doing, you are excited with what you are doing, the standard of your life immediately changes. Every morning you get up with bright light in your eyes, with some sparkles in your eyes, and you act. And this is the mission of yourself, why we came to this world and what we create in this world. And every person in this world has its own mission and purpose. And I realized that my mission in this life, actually, I always liked a lot to help people, to share something with them. And I like the topic of financial investments, because I believe no matter which country you come from, what is your earning, what is your financial standing, what is your age, so every person can become successful and wealthy if he wants to. Therefore, I deliver a lot of trainings on the mission and purpose. We have a standalone training on personal development. So these are very important aspects of our life. This is what we get up every morning, every day. We take tiny actions. And when people realize their mission, their purpose, their life changes. It becomes of higher quality. And therefore, I wish all of you to realize these five aspects of the harmonized model of personal development. And when you improve each of these aspects, you will immediately see that your standard of life improves, and your sense of life improves and goes up. You will become more consciousness, and I wish to all of you listening to me in all the languages of the globe, please make one home task. Write down for these five fingers from 1 to 10. Use the score from 1 to 10 as so which score you would give to each of these fingers. Maybe you believe that your health is perfect, then you need to put 10. So please, and afterwards put a goal that each finger should eventually get a score of 10. And what exactly do you need to do to get this highest score for each aspect? Maybe you need to do some exercising in the morning to improve your health. And make a plan of tiny steps you will take in order to improve each aspect of your life, each finger, and to improve your life and to become a harmonized personality which will attract success and wealth. Agreed? Please put a plus if you understand what I mean under the harmonized model of person development.
I saw a question over here that those topics are being repeated all over. But you know, they say practice makes perfect, or repetition is the mother of learning. So the same topic can be covered by different speakers. And I personally, in my experience, attended different trainings or the same training 5, 6, 7 times again. And every time I get these new revelations from those trainings. So those who said that there are repetitions here, pay attention to your second finger, which is attitude. Somewhere you might be thinking that I'm not interested in this is not my piece of cake, etc. Work on the attitude, because this training is also for novices as well who never heard about the harmonic model of personal development. So let's be tolerant, and I'm sure that every one of you, regardless whether you're a newcomer or an old-timer, you will find something new. So this is the purpose of this webinar, and I'm very grateful for you being here, that on Saturday you decided to take your time, to dedicate your time to your personal development. Let's move forward. So in the first part, we're going to talk about alternative investment and financial education. Why alternative? I studied in London, as I said. My major was business and marketing finance, and I paid lots of money for it. I remember back then it was £25,000, which is around $32,000 more or less. 3 years of education, it's a degree, and it was more than $30,000. And most curiously, when I graduated, and I graduated magna cum laude as well, I was an A student. When I started looking for a job, the first thing that I faced was people telling me, look, you don't have experience, so you cannot occupy a managerial position or any higher. You need to start from the very bottom. And you know, it's like a two-edged sword. On the one hand, you graduated, you have a degree, but you're not hired because you don't have experience. And in order to have experience, you need to be hired. So it's like it works both ways. So, or it doesn't work both ways. So my first challenge was to find a job without having experience. And then I was also surprised when I finally got hired. The first thing the CEO told me, forget everything that they taught you in college. Here, everything is different. So imagine I left my country. I went somewhere abroad to England to study English. I lived for 3 years having different terrible jobs. That I finally entered college. I went to college for 3 years. I received lots of knowledge. I spent lots of money on my education, all to be later hired and being told, forget everything. Here it works differently. So imagine my state. It was like I was about to be literally about to explode from inside. So I thought, now I have to learn everything from scratch. I know I need to learn the company, etc., all the ropes, learn the ropes, etc. So I realized all my knowledge that I received from very prestigious London Business School, it was not even useful. My degree was just to put a tick in the checkbox. That's it. A pro forma degree. So I realized that we should focus not on traditional conventional education. Well, it is necessary for, you know, your outlook, for a person to, for a child to grow up, to be a responsible student, to be able to listen to their superiors, to the adults. But you need also to have this internal drive to learn, to go and attend different training courses, to be on the outlook for a better version of yourself. So that's why the Academy of a Private Investor offers alternative investment and financial education, which is practical knowledge that you can actually apply, put into practice. So I've been working with this company for more than 5 years, and there were cases when really rich, well-off people came to us that had lots of businesses. They had like they were investors, professional investors as well, and they told us that the knowledge that they receive from us, that we share, unfortunately they couldn't get anywhere else in any school or college. So that knowledge is useful both for a novice and professional businessmen and investors. And when I work with different countries around the globe, especially with English-speaking people, I realized that the knowledge and the skills that we provide are unique by being very practice-oriented. So guys, take your notebooks, take your pens, and start making notes. We're gonna develop. So first, what's the difference between investments and investing? Very simple. So investments meaning putting money in financial and investment instruments or investment items or projects with the purpose of getting profit. So it's the different instruments. In the banking sector, it's like making a deposit or buying buying bonds, or sometimes there are mistakes on the slides, don't mind them. So it's like deposits, bonds. You can work through different brokerage companies. Abroad, real estate investments are quite popular. So the offers can be, the projects can be both long-term and short-term, and you can analyze, do your due diligence, and then pick your own instrument, see whether the degree of risks suits your preferences, etc. There are a lot of different investment projects in real estate. Also, it can be investment funds and companies. It can be financial sector and stock exchanges, currency exchanges. I have experience in investing through investment funds. I remember the first time, it was 10 years ago in London, when I went to a very renowned company doing investments. It was an investment foundation, and what they offered is to invest in one of the portfolios, and they would totally manage that portfolio and your money. So back then the entrance fee was £10,000, I think, the minimum amount of investment. It was quite a lot of money for me back then. And as soon as I graduated the college and I started working, when I graduated the college, I started working. I didn't have a stable source of income, but I quite enjoyed the idea that there are companies, professional companies, that raise money, and if a person is not willing or is not capable of doing on making investments professionally, they can hand over their money to a professional company doing it. But there are downsides here as well. The entrance fee, the minimum amount of investments, is quite high, which is like £10,000 and more. And many people don't have like available free £10,000 just to hand it over to a company to be managed. And the second downside is the fact that people lose money in such companies, while the companies don't lose anything at all. So how it happens? They collect a pool of money, and then they use that pool to invest that money in different investment tools, and they have diversification and very small degree of risk. But when a person picks different portfolios, the person himself or themselves assume all the risks. That's why an investment fund never go into the red territory, but which is showing a loss. But people investing in the investment funds, they can lose money. I have some acquaintances that saved the money for a long time, and then they handed that money over to an investment company, and then the company in 6 months later closed down, and those guys lost all of their savings. So I urge you to first look into what investments are yourselves, what investing science is all about. Because if you trust the management of your money, entrust the minimum of your management of your money to someone else, it's quite a risk. So it's just better to first have an understanding of it yourselves. So you can use a mixed strategy. Some of the money will be managed by you. Some of the money will be handed over to be managed by someone else, by a company. So, but you need to make an informative decision for that. Informed decision. So you need to have knowledge. And people, they get themselves into pyramids, the different Ponzi schemes, etc., and lose money because they didn't have knowledge to realize that this is a pyramid. If you apply all the knowledge that we're providing in our academy, it's like making a checklist and you can apply that checklist. If you apply that checklist to any company, you will see right away if it is a pyramid or not, if they have real assets or they don't. So that's why I recommend that everyone educates, receives professional knowledge from different sources of knowledge, and that knowledge put together will create your world outlook and the way you perceive investments. Let's move forward. Cryptocurrency sector. Well, cryptocurrency sector is quite popular right now. Put a plus in the chat if you've already invested in cryptocurrency sector. Do you have such experience already? Okay, I see. Great. Bitcoin, yeah, is the first tool that everyone hears about, and I guess that's the first tool that made a lot of people earn a lot of money. As if we take a look at Bitcoin, why some people made a profit of Bitcoin and others lost their money. What do you think the difference here is? Same tool. How the same tool can yield a profit for some and then turn into a loss for others? Someone says the point of entry, no knowledge, greed, the factor of timeliness, etc. Yes, all those factors that you actually mentioned, they count. So it can be, the tool can be the same like Bitcoin, and someone makes a profit and someone loses money. Why? Because they lacked knowledge. If a person understands when to enter the market and when to leave it, they won't lose money. But if a person enters into a project because they were full of emotions, they were in a hurry, or they were simply greedy, they will lose their money. That's why cryptocurrency sector is very interesting. There are tons of examples when people made lots of money, but there are similarly a lot of examples when people lost everything. So all those sectors have their upsides and downsides. And the only difference is the knowledge that you have or don't have. Then let's move forward. Crowdfunding and crowd investing. Put a plus in the chat if you already participated in crowdfunding and crowd investing, and if you know what those notions are. Okay, perfect. I see. Lots of you do know. And now, guys, attention. Put a minus if you never heard about crowdfunding and crowd investing and never participated in them. Great. Now let me explain in brief what it means. Crowdfunding and crowd investing are the varieties of investment when investments are raised not through the banking sector or private investor, but the money is raised from people. So common people can participate in crowdfunding and crowd investing. So this tool was first legally introduced as a legal tool of fundraising by Barack Obama, and it was a tool for businessmen, for entrepreneurs to raise money from common people, and by doing it, they would get a share from in the company. So it can be split into different segments as well, like equity participation crowd investing. So people, by investing, get equity shares in the company. It's quite popular among people, but unfortunately among companies it is not so widespread, because not every company would like to hand over their equity to people, their shares to people, because in this case you will have lots of stockholders, and if a company is ambitious, then of course the CEO and the board of directors are interested in having as few stockholders as possible, so that the profits are divided among the fewest number of people possible. But still, crowdfunding, crowd investing are quite lucrative for private investors, but companies are not that eager to go for that form of money raising. They go for other types of crowd investing. For example, it's called profit sharing. So if a person invests in a company, they do not become co-owners, but they will receive part of the profits. They will like skim the cream, you know, that's what I call it. So they will receive some profits from the sales of the product, but they will not own the company. And another type of crowdfunding is donations. It's charity, actually. You invested your money not because you wanted to have a return, but just because you liked the company and you like the services they offer. It's like you do it for free. That's maybe the correct term for it. So another type of crowdfunding is product itself. So when you invest money and in return you get products. So product-based crowdfunding was Oculus glasses. If you remember, people invested money and in return they received Oculus spectacles, glasses. They were not co-owners, they did not share in the profits, they just received the product. And this is quite a popular crowdfunding. I guess it's most popular in the United States, where people by investing in the company can receive the products. Well, in case of the Oculus, people who received the product in 8 months, Oculus was bought by Google, and that company became a multi-million company, and all the developers and all those who created the product became really rich people. And investors, you know, on one hand, they invested money when it was still a startup. They started complaining that, guys, like, give us a share of the profits from the sales. But unfortunately, the original terms were that they invest and in return they get the product. So, and they received glasses, spectacles that cost $100 back then. So you see, product-based crowdfunding is based on product, as the term implies. It's quite popular, but the biggest profit is taken by the owner of the company. So it's equity crowdfunding or crowd investing that gives the biggest profit. Armand says that Facebook bought it for $2 billion. Can you imagine? And people who invested in the company, who took all the risks associated with investing, and that's how it works, investing, especially if it's crowdfunding or crowd investing, it's quite a huge risk. And people were ready to share their money. They're ready to take the risk because they want to receive profits. But in this case, people received just glasses, and those who created the glasses and those who co-owned this company, they became multimillionaires because that company was bought for $2 billion. So guys, if you're doing crowdfunding or crowd investing, you need to identify the type of crowd investing first in order not to be disappointed as those people who bought who got glasses and were dreaming of something else. Also, investments are split into different sectors like gold, silver, and diamonds. I guess gold is the most, let's say, conventional historical tools. If you take a look at the gold-related investments, you will see that gold is one of the tools that can be called a guaranteed, time-proven, guaranteed tool. The price of gold increases all the time, and gold is the tool that does not really drop, doesn't plummet, and it's just a stable tool. And if you go in instrument, then if you go and take a look back in the history, its price goes all the time up. And also equity participation, venture market, and startup market. Well, equity participation and venture market are considered to be high risk investments. They can yield huge return, but at the same time, they are the highest risk sector there is. And here, only your knowledge, understanding of investments can help you out. Only if you have this understanding and knowledge, you can make an informed decision. Now, guys, let's take a look at what investing is. Investments are instruments, and what investing is. Let's see. Well, investing is a science. It's the understanding of how your money can grow from year to year, at the same time having high capitalization aimed at capital gains. So let's break it down. Investing is a process which is composed of you having different tools, different instruments. Like first you have the understanding of what you're doing, then you have the instruments which, when put together, create a portfolio. And the making of this portfolio happens by building your financial plans. We will talk about making financial plans later. What is most important to understand here is that investing is the understanding. It's the process. And here you can see how, on this slide, how $10,000 were invested for 10 years with an average monthly capital growth of 1% per month. Multiply it by 12, you get 12% per year. So in year one, out of $10,000, you get $33,000. Second year, it will be 107,000. Then in 3 years, it will be 347,000. Then it will be 3.5 million. And in 10 years, 10 years, yes, it's gonna be 102 million at 80% per month, at 96% per year. So could you please tell me, who of you looked into or maybe heard about such notion as compound interest or interest on interest? Possibly it was maybe the 6th grade or 7th grade at your school. So compound interest, have you ever heard about it? Okay, so now put a plus in the chat if you know how it works in practice, how compound interest works in practice. Put a plus and put a minus if you don't. In practice, friends. Not the theory, but the practice. Down to earth practice. Okay. Thank you. So thank you for being honest, because we have people who know what a compound interest is, because most of us did study it at school, But there are people who didn't know about the existence of, maybe they heard about the existence, but they never put it into practice.
Well, the compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So there will be a separate slide where we will discuss it in detail. But now let's talk how you can turn $1 into 1 million US. Well, please write down who every month saves a part, saves up some amount of money. Please put a plus in the chat if you do. If you save something, we have our students who know how much actually you need to save every month. Please put a plus those of you who do not save because you think that you actually have nothing to save. Well, I see as well, but let's test. By the way, this test will test our principles in this life. Please write this down. If it is not a secret, write down your earning a month in US dollars, preferably. If not, then in the rubles. So write down the amount of your income a month. 500, 2,000, 2,400, 10,000, 3,000, 1,800, 2,800, 700. Well, great. So there is a range from 200 and even higher. Great. And now the same persons who answered my question about their amount of income, please put a plus if even though you have this income, this money is not sufficient, is not enough for you. Put a plus in the chat. Well, I see it. So it's not enough. Well, this is a social experiment. No matter how much money a person makes, always this money will not be enough. Why? Why does this happen? Very simple. Because the more we make money, the larger our demands are. Before, using my personal example, and I'm confident you can say the same thing. When I lived in London and worked for a company and earned very small income, I went to stores to pick up some cheap meals and cheap clothing. There is a store Asda. For instance, products of much more expensive brands, so they are sold in these stores as well, but their own brand will be cheaper. There will be a tag that this is Hasba's brand and it will be the cheapest. And I remember my basket was filled up only with these labels, with these tags of being the cheapest products, because at that time I could afford only this. Do you remember such situations in your life? If yes, please put a plus. If you had a situation when you came to a store and only looked for the products that are the cheapest. You come to a cafe and looked for some meals, again, at the cheapest price. But then when you start making more, when you start earning 200, 300, 400, 1,000, 2,000 a month, you will buy the same basket of products, but these products are of higher quality, they are more expensive, their brands are a higher quality. You don't go to a store to buy some unbranded clothes. You would like to buy branded goods, meaning that your income increases, your demands increase as well. So therefore they say, no matter how much money you have, there will always be a wish to get better or to spend more. And actually it's quite great, guys, because we improve our standards of life. We need to improve them, but there should be a balance, because I have some friends of mine who make some money, but actually every month they spend twice higher than they made. And So every month they start from actually paying back some loans on their credit cards, and then they take or get new credit cards from other banks, and they make a pile of these credit cards and they live on loan. And therefore this balance between our opportunities and our needs and demands is important. It's great when we thrive for more, we want to make more, we want to spend more, we want to stay in 5-star hotels, all inclusive. But at this time you need to realize that if I don't start doing in a different way with treat in a different way my finances, then nothing will change in my life. So I can spend more, but unless I have an additional source of income, or unless my investments do not provide additional income, then eventually I will come to a bankrupt situation. And a crisis in 2008 actually was a good example of this. There is a nice movie which is called The Downside or Downline Game. So actually the government pumped a bubble when they provided loans to the people, mortgages, and they didn't actually assess the solvency of the person. The mortgage or a loan could be actually registered for a dog. It is an example from this movie. And the people live in expensive houses, they drive very expensive cars, and their level of living is quite high, but actually their incomes are at low level. And eventually we face this massive collapse. So, and people realize that they are fully in debt. So they are in debts and they cannot actually pay back these debts because their source of income does not provide them to pay the interests on this loan. And today, a lot of governments promote credit cards, promote loans. Please, dear friends, take cheap loans, cheap mortgages, but sooner or later you will have to pay them back. And sooner and later, you will have to assess your financial standing. And if today you see that your expenditures outcome your real capacity, then the first thing to do is to invest in your education and realize how I can increase my income, how I can invest in other projects which will give me additional income. And this slide, how $1 grows into 1 million, actually it was like a revelation for me, because the secret is not a secret. The secret is a compound interest. We studied this in the 6th grade, and it is efficient and it is functional. You need to have not a thinking of speculator who buys at a cheaper price and sell at a higher price, but you need to have the investment-based way of thinking when we make investments for a longer term perspective, because when we invest long term, this is where we get these golden eggs and where the compound interest actually works. Let's assume that we put aside $1 a day. Please put a plus if you can save $1 a day. Put aside $1 a day, for whom it is quite possible and realistic. But do we have people who cannot set aside or put aside $1 a day? Please write down a plus in a chat if you can't do it, if you can't set aside $1. It's not a problem, dear friends. If you can't put aside $1, then put aside 50 cents. The most important thing here is to develop a habit. Most people say that you can do it. So let's view it as our rule. Every day you will put aside $1, no matter. It could be 30 cents or 50 cents. The first step is to get a habit. Let's calculate. If you put aside $1 a day multiplied by 30 days, you will get $30. And for a year, 360 US dollars. In 10 years, it will be 36,000. And in 10 years, it will be 10,800. This is simply through saving, not investment, not investing, but saving. Saving is a good habit. And again, this is because of your discipline. If you have this habit, every morning you drink a glass of coffee, you brush your teeth, and the same applies here. You need every day to put aside $1 or specific amount, more or less than the $, but start getting this habit. Let's move on. So how does the compound interest operate? If you take these savings and starting from the second month, there will be a condition that starting from month 2, you will invest at 12% per annum, meaning 1% a month. So it will be your capital gain. And 30 years after, your capital income, your capital gain will be 105,897. So your saving or your investments is 10,800, whereas your capital gain in 30 years is 105,000 something. So it means that your saving every month generate some interest rate, and it was accumulated, and the annual interest rate is 12%. The capital income is your reinvestment contributions, your starting investments, added up or supplemented with capitalization. And capitalization means growth, the interest rate by which your initial investments increase. Natalia, thank you very much. Yes, we have interpreters. I will slow down for you to understand it better. I will repeat it again. So the capital income or the capital gain is your total income, including your investment contributions plus capitalization. Your investment contribution is the amount you invested. In this case, it is 10,800, whereas capitalization is your gain, is your growth. You invested 10,800, and 30 years after, we get 105,000. And what is the gain? What is the growth rate? So the growth rate is 880%. Your capitalization from the initial investments is 95,000 US dollars. So this is your capitalization. I will show you the table. Well, look, if we take the same terms and conditions, a person invests $1 a day with 1 interest rate monthly, then 360 days after, his amount of investments will be 104,818, meaning that the initial investments multiplied a lot by this compound interest. It multiplied exponentially because a compound interest, please put a plus in the chat if you calculated the compound interest, and put a minus if you didn't do it. If you didn't do it, I will tell you how you can do it, how you can calculate or estimate the compound interest rate. For instance, you have 10 US dollars, $10 multiplied by 1%, and you get $11, whereas in month 2 you have $11 added up with 1%. Each month your amount will grow by because your initial investment amount increases, and this is the way the compound interest operates. Monthly, there is an accrual of interests, and these interest rates the same remains the same, but the amount it applies to gets larger and larger, gets up and up. Yes, you are right. This way, if you estimate 360 months multiplied by 12, you get 30 years, and you will get this capital 30 years after. But let's see if we apply two interest rates. The table in the right with the 2%, 329 divided by 12, and we get that in 27 years you will make 1 million. Subject, you invested at 2% interest rate a month. Isn't it amazing, dear friends? So I showed you how you can grow $1 into 1 million in 27 years. Everything is simple. You need to understand and make the estimate on your own. When you hear and listen to someone saying, but when you take your calculator and realize how it is done, then you will see that it could be a reality. So now I'm asking the moderators to share the link to this table for the people to have a look and calculate it themselves, how $1 could grow into 1 million only at 2% interest rate a month. Let's move on. But in case we have not 2% a month, but 3% a month, then in 234 days divided by 12, in 12.5 years, you will hit your first million. Not actually earn your million, but you will hit this 1 million investments. Investments will help you to earn this. Like Robert Kiyosaki said, investments is a sector where not you work for the money, but money works for you. If you are an employer, if you are an employee, or you are self-employed, you work for the money. If a hairdresser doesn't make hairstyles anymore, you are not paid your salaries or wages. But if when we are talking about investments, it is not you and your money. Only when you start investing, your money works for more money. And therefore, there is such a notion as the thinking of the rich and the thinking of the poor. A poor person tries to save up money, whereas a rich person tries to save up time, because he understands that there are a lot of tools where money generates money. And actually, we did this. And by using 3% per month, if you start from $1, then 19.5 years after, not 12.5, but 19.5 years after, you will hit 1 million. This is an amazing growth rate. But now let's increase it by 5 or 8% per month. 5% percentage increases, and the higher the interest rate is, the faster we will hit our million. If there is 5% per month, then we will hit our million. 153 divided by 12, then it will be possible in 20.7 years. What does 12 years mean? So they fly very fast. 12 years flies very fast. So a lot of people to become a millionaire who started from $1. So how many do you know such millionaires? Very few of them, because we don't have the understanding. Yes, you give me some feedback that it is the ideal situation. You need to understand where to invest to. But what I want to show you, I want to show you that even if your investments are very moderate, or those tools, those instruments that yield only 2% per month or 3% per month, even if you have this small amount of money but invest in long term, you can hit your million. People tend not to believe it because in our childhood we heard many times that money doesn't grow on the trees. Investments are only for the wealthy people. In order to make investments, you need to make a lot of money. But this is nonsense, dear friends, and you need to get rid of this way of thinking. And even if you experiment and read the biographies of the richest persons in this world, Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki, who else? Warren Buffett, you will see and realize that almost all of them, particularly Buffett and Kiyosaki, they started from scratch. And there was such moments in their life when they lost their capitals, their money, and they again came back to investing to this science, and they grow up and went up and made even more. Losing $1 is quite similar to losing 1 million. When you gamble $1, whereas you have only 10 in your pocket, but when you gamble 1 million and whereas you have only 10 million in your pocket, the risk is the same. But here you gamble a larger amount, and therefore there are a lot of millionaires who hit their millions, but then afterwards quite soon they lose them. Why? They became a millionaire and they hit their millions because the science of investing is built on discipline. There is a standalone or separate slide and course, 8 rules of a private investor. We will discuss it, where I will tell you about the main principles. If you follow them, if you are compliant with them, you will never lose your money and you will never become bankrupt. Therefore, $1 could be multiplied into 1 million, and $1 could be easily lost like $1 million. And what matters is your discipline.
So those of you who are on the lookout for the instruments that will yield 5%, 8%, you're asking this question because you are not yet investment literate, because it's not about the availability of instruments, but about having the understanding of investing. Have this knowledge. Remember, there was a slide before of the difference between the investments and investing. Investments are just a set of instruments. It's like different sectors that you can invest in, while investing is the process, the understanding. So in order to be able to earn $1 million, you need to look into the science of investing. Yes, $1 per month. So put a plus in the chat if it is clear what I told you about the compound interest, interest on interest. And if you have this realization that, wow, even with my small savings, I can still achieve financial freedom or financial independence. If you still have doubts or questions, in the end, we can have the Q&A section for you to have a better understanding. What I want you to understand from this session, from this slide, is that anyone can make $1 million, and you can do it only by learning about the rules, about sticking strictly to your discipline. So one more home assignment for you guys. Look into the biography of Robert Kiyosaki, for example, or any successful investment gurus. Like even Andrei Havratov, if you look into his biography, by the way, we should suggest that he writes his biography. And you'll see that he started from zero, from scratch, and gradually he grew and grew, and eventually earned a lot of money and then failed to observe one single rule. He lost it all, and he had to start from scratch, stick to the discipline, apply his knowledge into practice, and eventually he earned tenfold compared to what he lost. So the key here is to be disciplined and to know about the science of investing. So someone asked me, where can we find those investment projects? Let me give you the example of 4 companies, but there are many more. Apple, for example, they yielded a huge return on investment. A person who invested in Apple in 1976, the investments into company were $8,000. People who invested that money in 1976, with the capitalization of the company of 1 trillion, they became multimillionaires, guys. And if a person invested one single dollar back then, for 43 years, if you invested $1 in 1976, in 2019, that dollar would cost 125 million. This is the growth of the company. Can you see it, guys? This is your $1. Google company, $1 in 21 years would become 9 million, 0.8. Facebook, $1 in 16 years would yield $21 million. Can you imagine those huge amounts? And many people, they, like, take me, for example. Back in the day, people suggested that I invest in Bitcoin when it was still, well, around 10 years ago. It was still the inception phase, like the seed phase. I think I could invest $200 and buy Bitcoin, but yeah, it was, I think, 10 years ago, more or less. And I said, well, no, I'm not interested. This is a pyramid. This is definitely a Ponzi scheme, and no, bullshit. And if they suggested that I do this today, what I would do my due diligence. I would see what kind of assets they represent, and then definitely a part of my income would be invested in that tool, even if it was a venture project or a high risk project. But now I understand the investment discipline. I understand the investment skills. That's why I have my own investment portfolio, because I know now how it works. 10 years ago, I didn't. And 10 years ago, all those offers that were there in the market, they just went by. I just let them slide. And guys, here you have it. Live examples on the screen. Companies whose services and products you use and who yielded an immense return on investment to those people who invested a very modest amount of money. So what are the 8 rules of a private investor? Those rules, it's the copyright training of Andrei Havratov, proprietary training, who is the general director of the Academy of Private Investor, and also he's the creator behind the CryptoUnit global investment portfolio, and he's the CEO of the New Economic Evolution of the World company. So he experienced and put into practice those rules himself. And as I already told you, there was a period in his life where he lost everything. And only by working out those 8 rules of a private investor and sticking to those rules, and thanks to becoming financially literate, he rose from the ashes and earned more than he lost. And there are people who, create lots of capital, and they create tools. All those people, they stick to certain rules, and those rules can be used both in relation to big investments and $1 single. The discipline, the set of rules are the same. Let's look into what 8 rules of private investors are. So those rules are the fundamental knowledge that everyone needs to understand, know, and follow, especially if you have the goal of becoming a professional investor if you want to understand how money works, how finance and investments work, and those people who would like to create additional sources of income. And today, investment in education it's not a luxury. It's not a something that rich and educated people should do. It's something that everyone should do in every homestead, every household, no matter where you live. So if you take a look at the economies of different countries, Russia's, Australia's, African economies, the United States economy, you will see that the economy of all countries at the moment are not stable. They're very much unstable. If you go back 30, 40 years ago, my parents were given by the state free houses, free apartments. There were pensions, like retirement money, that were sufficient for your survival. Now, 30 years later, none of the countries can really ensure a human being's financial economic stability. We all know what happened in Greece a couple of years ago, what happened in India when currencies changed and people overnight lost a lot of money. We saw it in our history, and those situations unfortunately will repeat unless a person realizes that except themselves, nobody is going to give any guarantees. Nobody is going to provide them with a security cushion, so-called financial airbag. And nobody will take care of them, really take care of them when they're retired, unless they have this realization. And we'll have more and more people in the poor class category. So the science of investing is a must for every person. And the 8 rules of a private investor is something that we all need to understand and apply. The fact of your learning about it and understanding it, it's not the same as putting it into practice. It's like being a librarian. You have a lot of books, a lot of knowledge, but if you do not put that knowledge into practice, they are worthless. Knowledge is worthless if it's not applied. Your knowledge will yield you dividends only if you apply that knowledge in real life. And the 8 rules of a private investor is this foundation, is the fundamentals that everyone should follow. First, you need to know what a financial independence and financial freedom are. Financial independence is when you have certain amount of money that you need every month. For example, $5,000 per month, that's your monthly spending. And you have tools, investment tools, that yield you an income which will be equal to the amount necessary to ensure your financial independence. So you create a certain cushion, right? You create a set of investment tools which in total yield you an amount equal to your monthly spendings, in order for you not to worry that you will not make it to the end of the month or that you need to go and work. If financial independence implies you earning a certain amount of money, which ensures that you do not depend on external factors, which ensures a comfortable life for you. Guys, write in the chat, what would be your amount of money to ensure that you're financially independent per month, so that you're not worried about your financial situation? Someone says 500, 5,300, 20,000, 10,000. So it turns out that for you to be financially independent, you need to pick financial or investment in instruments that would in total yield you a passive income equal to the amount that you put in the chat. And if you do that, for example, 10 years, then you can say that you will be financially independent. Doesn't matter in what economy you live. whether you are employed or not, you already have some safety cushion for 10 years, which ensures your financial independence. While financial freedom is like a formula, which even if your lifestyle becomes more expensive, and even if you have like crazy, insane desires, you still have enough money inflowing, enough dividends as a return on your investments to satisfy those desires. That's what financial freedom means. And I guess being financially free is the dream of everyone, not to be dependent on any economic, political moods of the society. Financial freedom is something that most people strive for. And this is in my collage of dreams as well, to create a capital, create a portfolio, a set of investment tools that would yield me sufficient income for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And the income would not be limited. So all my desires that come to me, I would easily make them come true. But in order to achieve that financial freedom, you need to achieve financial independence. Let's make a test here. So guys, in our language, different language groups, do we have people who are already financially independent? Put a plus in the chat in all language groups if you're already financially independent. Okay, great. I can see. You have Emil, Natalia. Kudos. So your next goal would be financial freedom. For those who are not yet financially dependent, now you know how much money you need. You're on your path. So you put that amount of money in your collage of dreams, and all your steps that you're going to make in the world of investing, try to be focused on that amount. Keep your eyes on that amount towards your strivings, in your striving towards financial independence. Next rule is always remember about the 5 commandments of a private investor. Andrei Khavratov said that he was inspired by the book. I think it's called The Richest Person in Babylon. I remember reading that book as well. It inspired me a lot too. And that book tell us how easy it is to become financially independent if you follow quite a simple algorithm. And the 5 commandments of a private investor are also is a foundation that the book tells us about. And those 5 commandments of a private investor are those small steps that you need to do every day. First commandment, always put aside 10% of all your incomes. If you have one source of income, your main employment, put aside 10% per month. If, in addition to your main employment, you have other sources of income, friends, from all those sources, you should put aside, save 10%. Second rule, second commandment, control your incomes and expenditure table. I will ask the moderator to give the link to our table of income and expenditures. Put a plus if you keep that table already, and the minus if you don't. Okay, I can see that many people do it in Russian chat and in English chat as well. Well, I personally, back in the day, didn't know about this income and expenditures table, and I never really, what I did, I used my bank card. I can have a monthly statement from the bank. I can see how much money I earned, how much money I spent. Why did I have to really keep that table? It's quite funny. But when I really started keeping that income and expenditures table every day, I saw things that I would never even realize existed. I saw all those unnecessary spendings that I do every month, really unnecessary, silly things that I'm buying. Sometimes I didn't even understand why did I buy it in the first place. And I saw the expenditure side of my balance that I could avoid. So my first revelation from that table was that I can get rid of unnecessary spendings. But the second takeaway from me was the development of the discipline skills. Remember we mentioned discipline? So this income and expenditures table is a very cool instrument for you to become disciplined. Every evening I sit down, I see my spendings, I put them down, and I see the balance I have at the end of the day. This is a small step for you to develop discipline, to become disciplined. And when you start making lots of money, when you have additional sources of income, you will see how necessary this table is for you. And when you keep that table every day, and when you have one source of income, this is one story. But when you start having different sources of income, this is a totally different story. And another important advantage of that table is you can do your own financial audit. You can see how many accounts you have, in what currencies. So it's a good tool for you to preserve your money, to do the audit of your balance at the end of the day. And it helps you become disciplined. And other rules are: protect your funds from losses. When we do take emotion-driven decisions, like you saw in advertising, buy two and you'll get a third one for free, and you buy those two items, although possibly you don't even need one single item. You buy two in order to get a third for free. So marketing is quite a manipulative thing, and when they offer you all those discounts, we take decisions that are totally not informed decisions, and we spend more than we really need to spend. So rule 3, protect your funds from losses. Then 4 is study investing. We already covered it today. And the 5th commandment: always learn how to earn more. Very important commandment, and I will tell you more about it. Remember, I mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, who said that investments is a segment where money works for you. And there is another notion, is like being a businessman. Businessman is a person who creates different sources of income. So the skill to earn more enables you to put aside more, to invest more. And as a result, the capital gains will be much bigger and faster. So if you have only one source of income at the moment, so your home assignment will be to look into different maybe vacancies or companies, projects. How can you increase the number of the sources of your income? There are a lot of different options out there where you can start earning more just dedicating a few extra hours of your time every day. Businessmen always stick to the rule: create additional sources of income. You never know what might happen to your work, to your business. Sometimes your business is successful and then something happens in your country, like competitors appeared all of a sudden, or your business turns a loss, and the skill to earn more ensures a diversification. A diversification is also one of the rules of a private investor that we'll eventually get to. So would I like you to focus your attention on learning how to earn more. And back in the day, that rule helped me a lot. And I really saw how my investment contributions started increasing when I finally got several sources of income. Let's move on. Rule number 3, to define your financial plan. Guys, put a plus in the chat if you already have a financial plan, and a minus if you don't.
If you don't have the financial plan, please write down one more assignment. This is to make your financial plan. There is a separate session the second, if I'm not mistaken, on the YouTube channel. So today, our students at this webinar, actually, we will give you one prize, one gift. So additional sessions of the second and third lesson of Andrei Khavratov, free of charge. After this webinar, you will get access to this training, which will include a session on financial plans. Please listen to it, because financial plan will help you to understand how to plan your investments. I will not detail this, the financial plan. This is a separate session. But if you don't have this financial plan, after today's webinar, you will get a link to Andrei Khavratov's training, where he will tell you how to make your financial plan. The next one is diversification. Actually, I've mentioned this. Never keep all your eggs in one basket. This rule applies both to your sources of your income and investments. It's very risky to invest all your money into one company and to have one single source of income. Therefore, in order to avoid some situations, some pity situations, diversify. The more sources you have, the more diversified you are, then the smaller your risk will be. And the same applies to investments. The more investment instruments you have, and diversification, in case some sectors are in decline trend, you can break the even by means of other sectors. The next rule is keep your investment discipline. Actually, I told this. The next point is greed and laziness lead to bankruptcy. This item, or this rule, is one of the most frequent factors why rich people may out of a sudden lose everything. This greed and laziness, when a person sees some unbelievable opportunity or proposal with very high interest rates, and because of this greed, why many people lose in trading? A great instrument. There are those who make a lot of money and those who lose. The reason is greed. So they start thinking that actually I need to make more or to invest more, because just in case I can make more. So greed and laziness and your discipline will help you. Never follow your greed. So when you invest, you need to estimate, and you need to be cold-headed, cold-minded. So when you make all the calculations, then no trends in the market will never dictate you what to do, because your estimations will be based not on your emotions, but on your so actually your actions will not be based on your emotions, but on your estimations. And laziness, yes, sometimes you lose heart and you don't want to do anything. And I like an example of kids. So no kid actually immediately learned how to go, how to walk. So they start firstly crawling, they fall down, again crawl, then stand up, again fall down. And they repeat these actions many times until they learn how to walk. But imagine if kids have the mentality of grown-ups, so they stand up and then they fall down and give up and say, no, I will never walk, I will crawl only. And this is actually our attitude to investments or businesses. They do something, and actually eventually they lose, and they believe that no, investments is not my cake. So therefore, let's put our laziness aside and let's act, let's try, let's want. Firstly want, then try, then act. If you cannot do one out of a sudden, actually there is no millionaire who can become a millionaire overnight. This is the matter of your attempts, of your trying and your mistakes. So you test different tips. So this is the way actually you need to treat your life, everything in your life, and practice and train and never give up if you face some difficulties. This is a part of the process. You need to overcome it. So therefore, put aside your laziness, say goodbye. Thank you very much. Laziness will bring you to nowhere, because it is based on your emotional jumps. Today I feel very lazy, then actually your life will cease one day with no one in the end. Therefore, put aside your laziness. So he is not a good companion in our journey. And the next items, always learn investing and always increase your capital. The more money you have in investments, the more instruments you have you invest to, the larger the capital gets. And the purpose of a professional investor, so the money, so actually some of the profits could be spent, but the main part is reinvested. So this is actually the way of living when you live on some liabilities. So you get only some tiny part, but all the remaining part is reinvested. Please put a plus in the chat if you now understand clearly these 8 rules of a private investor. Great. Thanks for your feedback. Are you still full of energy and willingness to listen to some other sessions? Aren't you tired and exhausted? Well, great. I am energetic and willing to continue working with you. Great. The second part of today's webinar is New Economic Evolution of the World program. Before we start to the second part, I want you to enjoy one interesting video lasting 6-7 minutes. Please watch it. If you want to drink some water, you may use this time. And 7-8 minutes after, as soon as the video is complete, please come back again. Nikolai, please play the video about new economic evolution of the world in all the relative languages. Thank you.